Welcome to the Authorpreneur podcast, where we talk to authors and business owners about how they are using books to market themselves and their businesses. I'm your host, Chris Green, and in each episode of the Authorpreneur podcast, we talk to a successful author and business owner to see exactly how they are using their books and author status to grow their businesses and serve their customers. We'll talk about what's working, the benefits of becoming a published author, and we may even come up with some creative new marketing strategies. In this episode of the Authorpreneur podcast, I talk with Bill Soroka, author of Sign and Thrive, How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent. Bill is no stranger to failure in business. After over 26 flops, he finally found a system that led to phenomenal success as a mobile notary and loan signing agent for the mortgage industry. All the lessons learned when applied to this business resulted in a lifestyle of flexibility and unlimited income potential. On top of that, there was a renewed sense of pride for working in a role as a notary public that is often the last line of defense against mortgage and identity fraud. Now, as one of the leading trainers in the country, Bill's Notary Coach brand and the Sign and Thrive notary training course and community teaches thousands of notaries how to build a business and lifestyle that makes people's dreams come true. A self-proclaimed nerd, Bill loves to read nonfiction personal development books. In fact, he's what some would call a personal development junkie. He spent the first half of his life accumulating knowledge from these books, workshops, seminars, and coaches, but not getting the results that he desired. In fact, he got the opposite results. After going broke multiple times, he finally took a results inventory, evaluating why he had not achieved anything substantial, even after being so committed to learning. What came to him in his research was what he calls his greatest epiphany of his life. Knowledge without consistent implementation is practically worthless. As common sense as that may sound, we know that common sense does not always equal common practice. Bill dove deep into how to execute effectively, going down the rabbit hole of human behavior and finally landing on the power of habits and routine. And habits and routine are everything. Now, the second half of his life is committed to the habits and routines that deepen relationships, create prolific, high-quality output, and ensure a lifestyle of peace of mind and raving success. Part of Bill's dream life is to travel the world and write books. This is where he will share that adventure with you. I really think you're going to enjoy this episode.
I was just going to say, I think that's the greatest gift is I've really attracted people who are nerds and love to figure stuff out and love learning. So I've got a great community where I can learn, and the fastest way for me to learn is to teach it. So I can just turn around and start like, hey guys, check this out. I just learned how to do this. Let me show you how I did it. So yeah, it's been a gift.
Well, you have been born in the right time, because there are plenty of times where they would not have as many options and opportunities as we have today to explore new things and learn new things, be able to take time each day to just kind of experiment and be able to learn something which might even be obscure. But then because of the internet, we can connect with other people who find this same obscure information interesting and valuable and share it with them and build a community. And yeah, I really feel like of all the people I've talked to who have published books and using in their business, like you've really figured this out. So my question for you is: would you consider yourself more of an author or a marketer or a something else? Because usually authors are not marketers, so they come for marketing advice. But you clearly have at least some experience as a marketer.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when people ask me what I do, I usually start with writer. I feel like the writer is who I am, the author inside. It just comes out in different ways for, I think, what was at first survival. But also, some people collect seashells, some people make pottery. I collect businesses. I love connecting the dots and seeing opportunities and bringing that. And I'm very enthusiastic, so I can usually enroll people into my crazy, wacky ideas. So I learned some promotion and marketing along the way. And when I need to figure something out, my first look is a book. I get a book on it, or I buy 10 books on it. I dive in, I figure it out, and then I take a class. And that's what's really helped me with this this book publishing thing. I read 2 or 3 books on it. I got enrolled in a program that taught me a mind-blowing strategy that I implemented on everything, and then I tweaked it and made it my own. So I just combined all of all of those years of experience. You know, I failed in business like 26 times. Well, I think I'm up to 33 times now. So I take all those lessons and I just keep applying it to whatever I'm doing next.
Well, what's the most recent failed business that you business experience that you had? I think people might think of, oh, you fail like 5 times, then you figure it out, and then you're invincible and you're perfect for the rest of your life. It's like
No.
I understand that logic, but it doesn't usually play that way.
Yeah, it really doesn't. You know, I look at failure a lot different now. I used to stuff those down and hide those and hope that nobody would figure it out because I figured people would judge. And the reality is that some people do judge that, but it's usually armchair critics who haven't done anything. So I learned to release that and then embrace my failures. So if I'm at 33, I like to, I give myself permission to fail again. I'm at 33 failures and counting. Because I think if you're not failing, you're probably not stretching as far as you should. And I don't want to put, especially now, because back then it was easier to fail, right? I had nothing to lose. Now I got stuff to lose. You know, I've built some things up. And I don't want to become in a silo and just become so overprotective that I stop taking risks or stop trying new things. So I forgot what your original question is, Chris. So 33 failures and counting.
Your most recent fail. Does one come to mind as, maybe you tried something that was a little out of your wheelhouse, but it looked interesting, because you can always learn a lesson from it. Of like, oh, I realized I stepped out of my wheelhouse, or it was a shiny object, and I was distracted. It was fun. I'm not surprised I failed because of X, Y, and Z. Like there are so many variables instead of like labeling yourself as either a success or a failure.
Right. Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
It makes me think that you should write a book called 33 Failures.
It's so funny you say that because that's the 20. Originally it was the 26 failures, but I thought that should be my next book. As I break out of just the notary business, I was like, gosh, I wonder. So I started sketching out the lessons I learned from each of those. So it might come. We'll see. We'll see what's next.
I would highly recommend it. Of course, as someone who's written a book, and I've written books myself, sometimes you have an idea for a book, but like it has to come at the right time. You might, like, you can try to write something and it doesn't happen, and then when it doesn't even seem like the right time to do it, you can't really think of anything else, and you just have to get this book out.
So true. It's like, it reminds me, my favorite quote in the world is, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." Victor Hugo, and that's exactly how it is. It just pours out of you when it's time.
Yeah, I get that from every author that I talk to. I don't know how to describe it. I hate to like assign it as like assuming everybody has gone through that. However, the data has really played that out of everybody who I've asked about that. Exact same thing. I feel like I'm going through it right now. Like I'm like on the cusp of having to start my next book, but I haven't started yet. So I'm kind of like trying to be patient with myself. Like, okay, it'll come. Don't rush it. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of waste your time. You're going to like take 10 hours to write one paragraph. When if you just wait, you'll be able to write that one paragraph in 10 minutes, and it's the same paragraph. You can't really force things. I've found. But
Totally agree.
I do want to ask you, so your first book, like, what led you? Did you kind of stumble into that, or was it kind of like I've seen what being a published author and having a book has done for these other businesses, and I want to replicate that, or what was the story behind that? Because most people don't write books, especially specifically for their business.
Yeah, which is a shame. I really think every business owner should consider this. So, but I stumbled into it. I stumbled into this business. So my first book was called Sign and Thrive: How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent. But I came into this business out of complete desperation, as some of my businesses were failing. I ended up finding a way to really nail this business. I was making almost $500,000 a year. So I kind of looked back and I said, how can I help other people with this? So I built a framework for teaching. I needed to teach other people because, I can't be in two places at the same time. So I started having to hire things out. And I built a framework. Like, here's what you need to do. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I was like, I got to turn this into a book. And then I was like, well, maybe I can turn this into a course too. So ultimately, it took me 3 years to write this book because of what you just said. I would sit down and I would write. I would get distracted. The resistance, as Stephen Pressfield calls it, that showed up in so many different ways in my life. So I kept putting it off, and it ended up taking 3 years. And I built the course first. So I released the course and then I released the book. Wish I would have done that differently, but that's okay. So it was a stumble and an accident. But like I said, I bought books on how to write a book. Like, how can I maximize this? I want to give value to my audience. I despise fluff pieces. Like when you pay $10 for a book and you get it and it's just a brochure for somebody's course. It just pisses me off. So I was like, all right, I'm going to give them the goods. I'm going to pack it full of value. So they could take this book and they could build their business just with that. They don't have to buy my course. So that was really important to me. And then I built in the lead magnets and additional resources, again, just going over the top with the value that I could contribute. I learned about lead magnets and email sequences and landing pages, all that stuff to help make this thing successful. And it paid off.
I think that might be a place where people like completely get overwhelmed. If they get to one step, like, okay, I'm gonna write a book. I figured out self-publishing. Okay, I know I've never done it before, but I think I can figure it out. And then they hear lead magnet and funnels and value ladder, and they're like, oh, for Pete's sakes. All right. And I could totally understand them giving up, because it's like they just entered one world that they never knew anything about, publishing and with the idea of using a book for business. And then this huge other world, which they don't even know how big the world is. They have no idea. It could be a small world, big world. They don't even know. So it could be like infinitely big. And the overwhelming feeling just takes over. And it's really easy to kind of go back, where it's like, hey, I don't feel overwhelmed back here. I coach a lot of people around publishing. And if they're going to set up some kind of membership, I constantly tell them, people pay money to not be overwhelmed, because people feel overwhelmed. Like, could you imagine just Googling like how to be a notary? Like you'd be overwhelmed, right? You go on either YouTube or Google or Facebook or just join a group. And I'm glad that you used the example earlier, and maybe it didn't even stand out to you as powerful as I think it should be, where like, you want to learn something, so you got a couple books about it and read it and took the time to invest $20 and several hours of your time instead of, and I try to help people in a lot of free self-publishing groups on Facebook as much as I do it. It's almost like I'm going in for punishment every time, because people will post the most basic questions instead of reading a book, because like, oh, that takes too long. Like, can I fast track that process of reading a book? And I'm like, you realize you're able to fast track learning something from someone who's already done it with a proven strategy, whether it's around self-publishing or anything in the entire world that's on Amazon. We're able to fast track that in a way we never had before. And I would make the case that the published book is almost a line of curation, instead of just listen to anybody who has anything to say on the internet, versus listen to something that someone has to say who's gone through the process to actually compile it and put it in a book and print it. You've already got a bit of that curation where you're like, yes, it may not be perfect, it may not have everything, but it's going to have enough that I can get started. But even then, people still want the shortcuts. So I'm trying to help people get past that and stop looking for shortcuts, and realize the opportunity right in front of them. Like, you want to be a notary, for Pete's sakes? Bill's giving you every single piece of information. Like, Bill's figured it out. Like, no, I just give it all away. And the people who want more will sign up and pay me, even though it's the same information.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love that you're on this, I can't think of the right word for it, ironically, but you're on
Like a mission?
A mission, yeah, or a crusade to help.
There you go.
I'm in a lot of those writer support groups, author, self-publishing Facebook groups, and it's so frustrating. Even for me, I don't coach people through this. I love talking about it, but there are people who can coach, they can teach. And I think it's so ironic that writers won't read a book. They literally want other people to read their book. They won't read one of them. If there was one piece of advice, it would be to get good counsel. Go to somebody, a course, a program, somebody with a good reputation that's been through it, who's published a book themselves and has a framework that they can follow, and just follow it. Treat each book like a business, because it's an additional revenue stream. I used this example with my mom the other day. I was like, every single book that I have is like owning a piece of real estate. it is going to pay me over and over and over every single month. But every single one of them is its own line of revenue. It deserves its own marketing plan. It deserves its own investment. I invested thousands of dollars over the course of a team, because nothing bothers me more than typos and misspellings, especially in my own book. But there's ways to do a self-published book super cheap, but it's not always the way it should be done, right? So I treat every single one like it's going to pay me for life, because it will.
It's something almost exactly what you said kind of came to me as an epiphany one day, and I texted it over to Nick. And he was like so excited. He's like, "Oh my gosh, can I use this in marketing?" I was like, "Of course. We're on the same team here." And what I told him was, a book is just a book, but your book is an asset. And I think people need to look at it that way, because, like I said, a lot of the people that I work with and coach, they're coming from a 9-to-5 background. They're trying to escape, kind of corporate kind of lifestyle. And what they're used to is, I go to this place and I stay there for this long and I do this task and they give me this much money, and then we repeat. Like, I understand the process, right? It's a tried and true process. Like, there's no mystery involved. I'm good with it. And then you say, "Hey, why don't you write a book?" And they're like, "Okay, what? So you mean I need to work for myself for $0 an hour for hundreds of hours potentially, with no guarantee of anything working in the end?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "No, don't want to do that. I would rather go back and spend hundreds of hours." Like, and I get it. I totally understand the appeal and the draw of a system like that. So it is a risk to say, look, I am going to learn this process. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to potentially write a book that nobody buys. Like, all these things can be scary, but the potential upside is, to me, it's not even close. That's how I started to try to explain it to people. What's the potential upside of writing a book? You're like, I can get speaking gigs, and I can start my own community, and I could become a bestseller, and I could earn all these royalty checks, and I could use it to acquire customers. Huge upside. What's the downside? You worked for yourself for $0 an hour and learned how to do something, right? Like, yeah, you didn't put cash in the bank. However, you learned a skill that most people don't know. And I think once they kind of think of it that way, they're like, okay, I'll trust you. I'll try it. I'm like, yes, please, because look at the track record of like all these authors. I might use you as one of the perfect examples, because say a lot of people that I talk to, they've got a book, they're trying to use it for marketing, but it really seems like you've really put the system together of understanding the lead magnets and the customer acquisition and the email sequences and the just leveraging published author status. I don't know if you label yourself as a marketer, but from what I'm seeing on all your stuff, you're a marketer who just happened to stumble into publishing.
Yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that, but also I think I just happened to be in a business that I utilized as a vehicle to be who I was supposed to be in this world, right? I was compelled to write a book since I was 6 years old. I didn't know it was going to be about notary work. I never saw that coming, right? I still look back and I'm like, really? This is the one? And that brings me to a really important point, because Chris, you nailed some of the external tangible benefits of writing a book, right? Like, it has opened doors. It has generated millions of dollars in revenue for me. It has.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah,
Explain
please.
a little bit more about that. When you say generated millions of dollars in revenue, I just want to make sure everybody who's listening to this realizes you're not talking about royalties. You're not talking about advances from a publisher. It's like your book led to revenue, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure people understand that bridge that you're making. It's not direct book sales that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So hold me right there. I'll come back to that, but I want to get to the intangible part too. And that's the feeling that I had after I published my first book. I accomplished something that I had been trying to do since I was 6. It was inside me. It needed to come out. And I felt such an incredible peace after that. I literally said, okay, if I died now, I had done something major. It's still probably one of the greatest milestones of my life, just the way it felt inside. And that's a feeling that's really hard to talk to people about before they experience them themselves. And
Oh,
then you
yeah.
get another huge upside for this. So let's talk about the money. I love talking about the way books can generate revenue. So royalties, especially in self-publishing, can be really exciting, but that's probably not going to be where you're going to see the majority of your revenue. Now, I got really, I say lucky, but there's always a little bit of luck involved in this. My timing was good. I ended up making several $100,000 in royalties from my first book. And that's because I owned the full rights. I did everything via KDP, but I also had a strategic partner that also started selling my book to my niche audience. The other books, significantly less, but every single one of these books was a funnel with additional resources. So people would exchange their email for the extra resources I had. I had an email sequence that drove them to courses and programs that I sold on my website that ranged in price anywhere from $33 on up to $400 or $500. And over the course of a few years, that generated 7 figures easily in revenue there. There's also speaking gigs. In my industry, I don't get paid, $50,000 or $100,000 to step on stage and talk about it, but I do earn stipends and paid speaking gigs that also contribute to revenue as well.
And the one thing I like about speaking gigs is like getting the replays. If it's recorded, you can use that as social proof of even just a clip of you walking on stage. People are like, oh, okay, this guy's got something to say. He's not just walking around his house. He's walking on a stage. So it kind of gives people this external validation of like, okay, other people have said this guy knows enough about his topic to put him on a stage. Therefore, I'll listen to him. And you can use that on social media. And you can use it over and over and over again, let alone the number of people you're going to meet by going to an event and speaking on stage. And one of the secrets that I like to remind people of, because people are always looking for these shortcuts, and I try to help people with like what are actually shortcuts and what can be kind of fast tracked versus no, that has never happened. You cannot fast track it. But I would say a fast track thing is if you have a book and you're able to like leverage it into getting a speaking gig, even if you pay your own way, you're going to buy a ticket anyway. You say, look, I'll give you 100 copies of my book if you need anybody to speak on this, and you send that out to 20 places and you get a couple speaking gigs. Like, in my opinion, it's really not that hard. But my experience has been, if you're a speaker at an event, you are instantly friends with every other speaker at the event.
Yeah.
Like maybe not best friends, but honestly on like a, can I contact you? Absolutely. Can I contact you? Sure. Friendly basis with everybody who's a speaker, not just everybody who's an attendee. People who are also already elevated to speaker status, and the doors that open that way are just incredible. Now, I always preface all this by saying, look, you have to actually know what you're talking about. You actually have to have good information. Your book has to actually have some quality content. You can't shortcut this with AI-generated books and just make this stuff up. You have to actually know. And it's another thing that I coach people on is helping them see the value that they have. Where it's like, oh, wait a minute, I do have some value. I understand that I have been in this industry long enough that if someone wanted to enter this industry and had questions, I could answer those. I was like, yes, that's literally all you need to be considered an expert or to have some kind of content on the internet that you can market as well as charge for, and you can write a book about it. And I think you're a great example of something. It's not incredibly niche, but it's pretty niche, right? Like not everybody wants to be a notary. However, people who want to be a notary are probably doing so in order to make some money. And if you're doing something to make money, then in my opinion, the marketing gets really easy because it's like, well, who wants to make 6 figures at home with this business most people forget about? And people are like, curious. I do. What is it? And they go down your rabbit hole, and it's like, okay, and he's got a book, and like he can prove that this is real, and like everything. I don't have to Google everything, and you're in business, and it's I don't know, it's just the best business model I've ever seen because it really has no startup capital. You don't need an office. You can do all this stuff from home, but you do have to commit to working for yourself for free.
Yeah.
Which there are worse things.
I've had worse bosses, yes.
But I see your book is up to almost 1,500 reviews, which is awesome. I don't know if you're leveraging screenshots of your 5-star reviews because most books don't get to that 1,000 review mark. So yeah, you could leverage that all day long. And do you know your highest sales rank that you achieved with your book?
I've been number 1 for on Sign and Thrive for a while on the Kindle edition, and not the paperback.
On Amazon, you got up to number 3,000. That's overall all of Amazon, not even not category specific. Kindle, I think you got higher than I've ever got, because your Kindle went as high as number 213 on
Wow.
all of Amazon, which I
Yeah.
look up a lot of books for a lot of high-powered authors. That's higher than most, or better
Wow.
than most.
Wow.
Uh, September of 2022. Let me see. What were you doing in September of 2022? Oh, you ran a price promo. That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll shoot it to the top. Yep.
Yeah, that's my birthday. Every year I try to run some kind of.
It's like you've been watching the podcast. That's literally what I expect, or what I recommend to people is if they've never heard of making their book free on Kindle and they don't know about KDP Select and making it free for 5 days or 5 individual days. I tell them, look, like on Amazon Prime Day, on Black Friday, whatever you want to do, or your birthday, put out an email. It's my birthday, but the gifts are for you. My book is on Kindle, absolutely free. I always recommend collecting that email on the way in, right? If you're just posting about it or just emailing your list, just an autoresponder sending them to Amazon. Because even though it's free on those days, it still shoots you up the sales rank charts. You can still take those screenshots of being number one in your category.
Yeah.
And something I'm surprised more people don't do this, but when I tell people, they have a pretty good response to it. I say, like, whoever's number 2 or 3, whoever's like known in your category, whenever you're outselling them, take that screenshot so that you can then post on Instagram or post on Facebook and tag them and be like, hey, just letting you know that I'm outselling you over here, especially if you're punching up, right? If it's someone like a Gary Vee or just like someone top tier in your category, because you can outsell them, even if it's only for 10 minutes using
Yeah.
a promo. And then you can legitimately say, hey, remember that time I was outselling you, Gary? And it's kind of a friendly jab, but now you're able to tag celebrities. You're able to tag someone who's maybe in your niche in a fun, playful way, and maybe get a little bit of their audience. And all of a sudden they download your book and they join your community and they join your email list, they enter your world. And there's just so many fun marketing things that you can do.
Yeah, there's no rules on it. That's what's so cool about it. And what you're talking about here, I think, is the generous spirit. I think you get a lot more by giving as an author. So, like, I think you can release trying to make $10 per book
Oh,
and stressing out about that rather than just give the book away. Like when I go to an event, they always offer, "Oh, you could sell your book at a table in the back," and I'm like, I am not hawking books at an event. I'm there to speak. I will give you 100 books to give away to the audience, but I'm not going to be back there making change, running credit card machines, or anything like that. I get a lot more when you structure this marketing plan right, and your book brings in, it's worth hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in the background, then you have no question in your mind the value of your book. It costs an author $3 or $4 to have that thing printed by KDP. You ship it to your house. It averages about $1 a book for shipping. If you buy 50 or 100, or I bought thousands at one time, but give those away. Use it as a promo. Every single one of your clients should get a book. I autographed all my escrow officer clients got one. All the escrow assistants got one. It just created, again, just added to the foundation of our relationship. But it got the word out. They started passing it on. They run into a notary that doesn't know what they're doing. They're like, hey, you need to read this book. It just creates this constant flow of goodwill, good energy, and of course, sales.
yeah, it almost does it feel too good to be true in a sense of like because historically it would have taken a lot more effort and money and time, and there were gatekeepers if you wanted to write a book, right?
Yeah.
Even if you did a vanity publishing thing, you'd have to go through the process and print 1,000 and pay for them yourself, and you wouldn't be able to update them, and there's no digital. But now we have all of these things, and I do feel like it's a too good to be true thing where, when I explain this to people, they're like, that sounds really good. What's the catch? Like,
Right.
what, how much does it cost? And it's like,
Yeah.
there's no catch. It doesn't cost anything. And it's like, take advantage of it. I have to do the same thing for me. I use the quote from The Incredibles a lot, where you've seen the movie The Incredibles, like that part where he reveals the master plan, and he's like, when everyone's super, then no one is. And I feel like we get stuck on that a lot. Well, everybody has the iPhone 15 or whatever. It's like, it's still amazing, right?
Right.
Like we remember a world. Not everybody remembers a world without GPS, right? And without text messaging and cell phones, and without the internet, but when you realize that, and then like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing what we have right now, then we can appreciate it a little more. So I think it can be, you have to. I find that I try to remind myself all the time of how amazing things are and not
Yeah.
take things for granted, because it's really easy to settle in and be like, oh, well, someone else is probably better at coaching notaries. So, I'm not going to,
Mhm.
why would I bother? Like, you can psych yourself out. And I think a lot of people, and I guilty of this myself, psyching myself out sometimes. You have to remind yourself, no, like it's there for you to have if you want, like, but you have to put in the work and put yourself out there and try things and be willing to fail, because you might publish a book that no, it was the wrong book, or it wasn't good enough, or the niche wasn't there, or the marketing was off, or the launch strategy was terrible, but you can learn from it. So it's not that it's a surefire way, write a book and you're going to be successful. However, writing a book is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to ensure some level of success, and then just kind of build on it.
I totally agree. And you said something just about finding the appreciation for the tools that we have that we often take for granted now in today's age. And I love that, because I do something similar. I try to live life in awe, because there's so many amazing things. And every morning I give gratitude. Like, give you an example. When I first had the idea of building an online course, it was back when you had to, like, duct tape all these 12 different software technologies together, and I was going crazy. Amy Porterfield was trying to teach me how to do it, and she's like, well, then you got to do this, and then you got to get this device that connects this side. And I'm not a tech guy, so I was just about to quit. And then Kajabi came along, and it's this all-in-one platform for everything. And it totally, so every morning I give gratitude for it. I'm like, thank God for that, because I would have quit if this technology wouldn't have come along at the right time. And so just those little examples. And even though Amazon sometimes gets this, a lot of people have strong opinions on Amazon or KDP, I give gratitude for it, because without KDP, I don't know that I would have been published. I don't know that it would have been as, quote unquote, easy for me, right? So who knows where I'd be? So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my value and change my life and change the lives of others. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I hope people kind of stop and pause and it's one of those things where, like, I think of the internet, and I've been recording videos and uploading them and sharing, and it's like, I don't even know how that works, man. Like, I don't know. Somehow light goes into this camera and then goes through a wire, and then magically it goes out of my house, and then someone else can watch it, like, almost instantly. Like, I don't know how that works, but my brain just doesn't worry about it. It's like, well, I guess that's how it works. But my brain will go down a line of, like, am I in, like, a sci-fi movie where, like, this doesn't actually work? It's like just the rules of the universe, or the book that we're, the suspension of disbelief kind of thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm sure it works, and a scientist could explain it to me, but, like, I don't need to know how that
Right.
works in order to use it. And that's kind of a thought that I was thinking about yesterday. It's like, I don't need to know exactly how all these things work together in order, like, I can see the results. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna trust on that. And it goes the same for self-publishing. Like, I don't need to know the exact process in it's actually called a MOD, a made-on-demand warehouse, where KDP books are made. I don't need to know how that works in order to use KDP. And I don't have to love everything that Amazon does in order
Right.
to use Amazon. But if I have a message I want to get to people, this is the most efficient way to do it. And
Right.
yeah, I'm glad there's a lesson that comes up frequently of people who pay attention. And I always kind of think of that. I don't know if you heard it before, or you've heard a different version of it. And that's why you should give everything away. Put your best stuff in your book, your best stuff in your YouTube videos, all that. Give the best stuff away, so people are like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, his stuff is way better than everybody else's. And then when they pay money because they actually buy your book or they buy your course, they're going to pay attention. And it's not that the course has secret info that, oh, this is too good to give away for free, or in the book. It's like, it really is the same stuff. It might have a little more in-depth explanation. I would and tell me if you agree with this, you probably explain a lot more of the why behind things. Like, yes, I told you that you need to do this, so I'm going to explain why.
Yeah.
And really only true experts can explain the why, instead of like, I know you have to do this to be a notary. Yeah, but do you know why? No, I just know you have to do that. Well, there's a reason. If you don't know the reason, you're probably not as much of an expert as you think you are.
It's so true. And there's, in my case, like I consider my Sign and Thrive course, it's a personal development course bundled up in a notary course, right? Because there's so many other ways. There's so many nuance to human relationships. Why you don't park in a person's driveway. Like, what does that mean? What to show up wearing, and why you wouldn't wear this, or why you wouldn't put on this much cologne or perfume. All those little things that you can get into details with. Is the power of having a course behind that kind of free content. So yeah, I love that, and I love that people who pay attention. The worst experiences I had in my training programs have been with students that got the course for free. Friends that I trained for free before, people who had coupon codes because I did a promo. Those are always the ones that either don't do anything with it at all, take it for granted, or the other stories too, over demanding, they're pissed off about something, whatever it might be. So I stopped doing that relatively early as far as the course goes for free, but I gave the content away for free. YouTube is where I got my start, right? I was doing YouTube videos from my car. I just started doing those again because I was like, it worked in the beginning. I'm going to do it now. As our industry shifts, I just go back to the basics, go back to what works.
Yeah, I watched one of your YouTube videos, and it's such a simple kind of marketing behind the scenes lesson. And I'm guessing you didn't even really pick up on this when you recorded the video, because you're just recording a video, and you were talking about which printer you need to get. And I'm sure anybody could be like, "Oh yeah, I need a printer. Obviously, I need a printer. Like, let me go to Amazon. I'll get whatever they recommend. I'll get the cheapest printer. I'm guessing like $100 or whatever." It's like, actually, no. There's a very specific type of printer that you need, and these are the reasons why you need it. And I don't know if maybe you take that for granted as someone who's just done it for such a long time, but I'm watching it as like a marketer, and I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, you have to know that, wait, I need a dual tray printer, and I don't need to print black and white. I didn't know that, right? I don't need to print front and back, one side only.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
You
And
paid
pretty much
attention.
everything's gonna be black and white. It's the little things where it's like,
Yeah.
you know those things, and as you can explain those to people, that's what differentiates you from someone who says, "Well, I'll teach you to be a notary. Like, I'm sure you need a printer, so just go get one." And they get the wrong printer. They get an inkjet that smudges. They pay way too much for color. They're printing everything front and back, and they're having to go home and reprint everything. They don't have legal size because they didn't stop and think and get a printer that has that specific option. Because most don't, because most don't need, they just need a regular standard paper. Small little details like that. And what are you going to keep that behind a paywall? Be like,
Right.
no. Like, no, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you give all this stuff away to demonstrate this level of expertise and mastery for people to say, yeah, and on top of all that, this guy literally wrote the book. I mean, that's just a phrase that people use in modern day and for the foreseeable future. Maybe one day we won't say that, but for now, people will introduce somebody, say, "Oh, this guy literally wrote the book."
Yeah.
An elevated status that you get by being a published author, and then that's the fast track. But it's actually a slow track because you have to actually write that book, right? You can't fast track getting the book. You can, once you have the book, then I would make the case you can fast track relationships. You can fast track the know, like, and trust factor. You can't skip it completely, but you can speed that up if you will put in the work and create a book. And it can be easier. It doesn't have to be the end all book in your niche. It just has to have it has to communicate something. An example, if someone wanted to write a book, say before we chatted about becoming a notary, I would tell them, write a top 10 book. What are the 10 things you need to know before becoming a notary? Do you know those things? They'd probably be like, yeah, of course. I can write that in an afternoon. I'm like, well, good, then do it. Because that's it. That's your book. Here's the 10 things you need to know if you want to become a notary.
Absolutely. And I think what people do is they get in their head, and you talked about that a little bit, but they're like, well, Bill's already written a book. There's already 1,200 notary books out there, but they haven't heard your voice. They have not heard your perspective, your experience, your story. And that's where the value is. You can build your own frameworks. You can share your experience. You can say it in your own voice, and you will find your audience. You can't find them if you don't create and publish. You got to put something out there. And it's funny how it works, but you tend to just attract those people, somebody's going to pick that up and say, oh my gosh, it's like you were in my head. I could hear my own experience in this. I went through something similar. And they need to hear that. If I say, Chris, if somebody feels the need to write a book or write and publish a book, then they need to do it, because that's a calling from somewhere. Someone out there might need it. They might need to publish it, whatever it might be. But you got to overcome those inner demons. And you've talked about that a couple times today, but that's the biggest obstacle, I think, for an author, is just getting in their own way.
Well, you almost mentioned it at the very beginning, where you said, look, when you want to learn something new, you go and you buy 2, 3, 4 books and you read through it. And that's a great example where people say, oh, but Bill's already written a book about becoming a notary. I was like, did Bill go buy one book when he wanted to learn how to do something? No, he bought multiple books. He wanted other people's perspective. You can go on Amazon and you can search for any topic and you can see how many books have been written about that topic. And you can see which ones are the most popular and you can see which ones have the most reviews. It's going to be rare that you see a book that has one copy and it's like the go-to for the entire industry and no one else has anything else to say ever about it. No, that doesn't make any sense. If it's a popular category, there's going to be all kinds of people who want to have their perspective and share their version of it. And they're not trying to say, look, I'm the best and everyone else sucks. It's like, no, this is my take on it. If it can provide value to somebody, great. If and here I think most authors would honestly say, look, I'll put 5 other people's books in my book as recommendations if you want more information. I would never try to say I know everything about this topic. And that's kind of the humbleness of true experts, that like I probably don't even have time to get into imposter syndrome and Dunning-Kruger effect and all that stuff. But there is room for all kinds of people. And the niche stuff, you're in a fairly narrow niche, but you're in a huge category of wanting to make money. So it's easy to market and then find people who want to get down into your niche. But being able to be in a niche, you don't need that many people to support you in your niche, in your book, in your courses, in your memberships, whatever it might be, in order to make that 6 figures. Like if you have $100 a month offer or membership, you don't need that many people in order to make 6 figures a year. Like you just reverse the numbers and be like, wow, that's a surprisingly few number of people that I need. I was like, yeah, so think of it that way. Don't try to make $1 million. I see so many people, and I used to kind of be there. I want to make $1 million. Well, have you made like $100,000? Well, no. Have you made like 10,000? No. Have you made $1,000? No. Well, maybe do that first before you try to make $1 million. Because I promise, making $1,000 is a lot easier than making $1 million. So kind of go one step at a time. But you can make significant money.
And I think you nailed it by doing the math. That reverse engineering. That's probably one of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel too, because I just said, look, guys, if you want to make $100,000 a year, here's how that breaks down. And that was for my own head too. So I could say, all right, what do I need to do? Because I've never made 6 figures in my life. Like the most I ever made at a bank was $33,000. And I thought I was rolling in it, right? Like it's just it. And that was the longest year of my life. But when I rolled it back, I said, holy shit. Can I say shit on here? So I was like, all right, I only have to make $400 a day, 5 days a week for 50 weeks a year. So that gives me 2 weeks to mess around. And I make $100,000 a year. And then in my industry, my appointments were worth at least $100 to $300. So I was like, wow. So if I just had 4 appointments or sometimes 2 appointments, I would be on track. And that just helped me figure out how many people I need to talk to, what kind of marketing strategy do I need to do. And you can do that with any product that you have. And then when you get into the course subscription models.
Yeah, the courses, and I think people just need to kind of brainstorm what you can offer sometimes, because you can have, depending what your course is teaching, like who the course is for, who it's not for. By the end of this course, you will have learned X, Y, and Z. You can charge. Some courses are inexpensive and some courses are a lot of money. And you can include pretty much anything you want in a course. You could offer a course that includes 10 hours of one-on-one coaching. And people will be like, all right, I expect that. Maybe cost a little bit more. You can kind of make this stuff up. And I think some people get stuck with decision fatigue. They're like, well, I don't know what to call my course. I don't know how to price it. I don't know how to outline it. I don't know what camera I should use to record it. I don't know what microphone I need. And you have to make all these decisions. And they can seem overwhelming, the number of decisions, and that can cause people to kind of slow down. But again, look at it as like, these are all just small decisions, right? Like the camera doesn't make or break your course. you know? Um,
Yeah, and there's guidance that you can get on here, but here's the thing too: is the will unveil itself. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned, I mean, my signing thread course, it's the most comprehensive. It's so packed. It's too packed. It didn't need to be that much, but that was my insecurity, and I was overcompensating. I was like, I just have to pack this thing full of value. It's $33 a month. It's so packed with value. But what I learned as I would go through and I'd be tracking the progress of my students, like very few were actually going through the modules and using all that. What they wanted was to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They wanted to be around me. They wanted to be on office hours. They wanted just somebody to bounce ideas off of. So as I started figuring that out, I could relax a little bit and saying, wow, this could have been a much smaller version of this. So, but as if you're an author out there trying to figure this out, your book, as you write your book, it will come alive. It will get a life of its own. It will pave the path for you. You'll start connecting some dots and saying, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do this. Or I could just meet with people 3 times a month like this and answer questions. Just have a Q&A or ask me anything session. The other thing that's so popular right now, it blows my mind, is paid newsletters. Like electronic email, like email newsletters. People are charging monthly fees for those or quarterly fees for those. So there's all these different ways to monetize the book on the back end. And if you just and this gets to my main point, is nothing else matters, Chris, until they write the book. Right? All the other stuff can be figured out. But if you try to figure it all out before you even have a book, you're just going to be stagnant. You're not going to move. Just write the book and just trust that it's going to unfold. It will unfold in perfect time.
the marketer in me just had this visualization of like going to a theme park, and there's all these different rides, and there's the ride of the free plus shipping book funnel, and there's the ride of the community and the membership, and like all the different marketing things that you can do, but you can't get in unless you write your book. So you can see all these cool things. You're like, man, I really wish I could get in there. That looks like a fun business to be in. Like it is. And they're building new rides all the time. And there's all kinds of new ways to creatively market your book and your business and provide value to your customers and make money. But yeah, it's not the most expensive ticket in town, but you have to sit down and write that book. And it's enough of a barrier that it's going to keep most people out, unfortunately. But for the people who say, look, yes, okay, Chris, Bill, I get it. I'm in. I'm going to sit down and write the book. Please do. Right? One of the best uses of ChatGPT, I don't recommend it for writing books. However, I have found that it's great for outlining books. If you tell ChatGPT, free version, say, hey, write me a 12-chapter outline about this topic and see what it gives you. And then kind of rework it and be like, this is actually pretty good. I've done that for self-publishing, and I'm like, that's really good. It even picked up on like, wow, I didn't think it was going to go down that far in terms of the self-publishing niche. It's pretty good. And if you can get an outline, you can fill it in. I've typically said the outline is the hardest part, at least for me, for writing a book, because you have to take everything that you know and put it in an order that someone who doesn't know those things is going to be able to consume it and have it make sense. So you can't talk about something in chapter 1 that doesn't make any sense because they don't know about it. You have to put things in order. And that, in my opinion, is difficult when you're an expert to really go back and look at it from a newbie perspective. But once you do that, it's just filling it in. Yeah. Like it's whether it's the top 10 things or it's from ChatGPT.
I totally agree, and I love that you don't advocate for using ChatGPT to write, but for outlining, it's like it prompts you. And when I've talked to experts who haven't written a book yet, they say the exact same thing. Like, where do I start? Or they start from this advanced level, and I'm like, well, whoa, hold on, you got to go back. What was your first step? What was the mistakes you made? Start with your mistakes you made, and see what unfolds. But having an outline or just a prompt to get you thinking about things differently, and that's the gift of ChatGPT for sure.
There's another lesson, exactly what you're talking about. I did the exact same thing with a Facebook group years ago where I was like, I'm going to charge low price and I'm going to give so much value in here. And I overwhelmed people. So they left. They're like, no, this isn't what I'm paying for. And it taught me the lesson that people pay to not be overwhelmed. They pay money so that an expert can come in and say, tell me what I need to know. And don't waste my time with the stuff I don't need to know. Because there is too much information. And once people kind of get behind in a membership group, they feel stuck, they feel frustrated, and they leave. Yeah. And for people like you and me who are trying to over deliver, like we really want to make sure everybody's getting their value worth. I've got 80,000 students on Udemy, and I can see how much of the course they go through, and most of them are 0 and 1%. Every now and then someone will get to the end, but it definitely tapers off over time. But we want to over deliver. But then you have to understand human psychology and be like, okay, like why are they actually here? They're not here because they want a freaking waterfall of content every single morning. Like they need to know, what do I need to know? What don't I need to know? And like they're kind of using you as kind of like a filter. Be like, I don't need to worry that I'm going to be out of date on anything because I'm in this membership group. It might be low price, it might be high price. But they can use that to like get out of their own head of like worrying. Is there something else? Has the industry changed? Do I need to worry about this? Like, no, I don't have to. That's what I pay for. I pay to not be overwhelmed. And I've had really good response from people when they kind of realize that, because I think it's natural to try to over deliver. Like we want to give, but it's actually works a little bit backwards. It's like a backfiring effect by doing that.
A lesson I continue to learn.
It's a good lesson because it means you're constantly really trying to like provide a ton of value.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta like bring yourself back and be like, okay, well, I've got all this stuff I want to share. What's the most important stuff? Let's not overwhelm everybody. Yeah, there's so many. And have you heard of Skool? Skool.
Actually, really like the way it's laid out.
You know why? Because it's made by marketers.
Interesting.
So it's not like Udemy. I use Udemy, for my online courses, and it's not made for marketers. They are, and I get a little frustrated with them sometimes because they're like, you're not allowed to send any links that go back to a personal website or social media. You can't do anything where like your students could actually connect with you outside of Udemy. Like, how dare they? Right? Like, I'm like, one, they can just Google me if they really want to, right? Like, it's not like I'm hard to find. But that kind of walled garden that they're trying to put up, I get it, because they don't want the bad marketers coming in and just like spamming and just trying to like harvest email addresses and all that. Like, I understand that part. But for everybody else, like, that's not what Skool is doing. Skool's not saying, oh, we'll let the marketers run wild. They're saying, okay, how would the ethical, proper marketers build a community? And they built it that way. So you can collect email addresses and you can push messages to all your students. So I think if you haven't created your own group yet, I'd definitely consider it, because they have a classroom section. You can kind of gate your courses based on like their experience level. You can invite people personally. So if they pay for a course like outside of school, then you could add the school course to their account within school. It's currently it's manual, so it's not too hard, but it's not automated. But it seems to have a lot of the stuff that you might want in a community. Not that you're looking to switch everything over, but
yeah, definitely
keep that in mind as a future option.
It has my attention because I think Alex Hermosi just went in big investment with them as well. So I know they have some big plans. So it's on my radar. I have Kajabi right now. I've always loved it, but at the same time, there's some things that I don't love about it. So I'm always open to new opportunities, which is part of my problem.
It's like the shiny object a little bit, or
sometimes it can be. I've really overcome that component, but I have I can't help it. The way my brain works, I see opportunities and I attract opportunities. So people are bringing me stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, that's really good. That's really good too. So my theme for 2024 is just say no. So,
all right, well, I'm going to give you an idea. It's probably something that you've had the idea of, although I'm not sure if you've actually put these things together. You will not hurt my feelings if you say no, but this is, I have high confidence you're going to be like, oh, for Pete's sakes, I should have done that a long time ago. So this is the newer version. I originally published this book in 2014, and my first book was in 2011. So I understood the publishing process, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to make this course. It's called Online Arbitrage. It's about how to buy products to resell online. And I was going to put it on, I think Udemy was the first place I was planning to put that at the time. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I'm writing all this stuff. I'm making these videos. I'm like, why couldn't I publish this as a book, right? Like, I'll put an unlisted YouTube link or a password protected Vimeo link. I'll put a QR code. This is 2014 when nobody knows what a QR code. I have a whole chapter about how to download a QR code reader app because the camera, it wasn't built in, 10 years ago. But I'm writing like long paragraphs. Like, I'm taking all these screenshots. Like, the book was like 500 pages. Like, it was a thorough online course. It was something like 20, 30 something hours of content. I was like, you know what? I could publish this as a book. And I'm accidentally marketing it in the sense of, I got a Facebook group And every time I finish a chapter or I find like a really good deal that I'm able to document like in real time, I go in and I kind of tease it a little bit, like, man, I can't wait for you guys to see chapter 12. I got this awesome deal, spent this much per unit. They're going to sell for this much and make this much money. The book's coming out soon. The course is going to be ready. So I had to kind of pent up demand, which wasn't intentional, but in hindsight, I can see, oh, that makes sense. I should do more of that. Listed the book for $300 on Amazon. My royalty check for the first month of sales was over $70,000 just for this one book. And I'm like, this is really cool. I think more people should be publishing course content as a book. Like, hey, you want the course content, which is basically you want access to this digital content. I will give you that access if you have these pieces of paper, right? So can you buy these pieces of paper and I will give you access to these digital downloads, bonus, whatever it might be. I think this is one of the most underutilized ways to use self-publishing because it gives you this physical product. You can, of course, sell your digital course, but people love digital products. They love buying from Amazon. This blew Nick's mind when I told him, I was like, Amazon packages have a 100% open rate. And as a marketer, he's like, oh, for Pete's sakes, you're right. We're trying to email people with 25% open rate. Just send them an Amazon package, 100% open rate. Exactly. They trust the reviews. They know they can return it if they don't like it without having to go through some return process. And then if you go to an event and you're like, hey guys, I'm giving away 10 copies of my $500 course. And they can look on Amazon. It's $500. They're like, wow. Or you gift it to somebody. They're like, Bill, are you serious? It's like a $200 book. Like, yeah, I want you to have it. And you know the author cost on these things. Like, there are so many upsides to the expensive book. I'm hoping more and more people are going to catch on to it. And you've already got the online course content. So that's my long way of asking you, have you considered publishing course content as a book?
You've got my wheels turning for sure, because I've been trying to think about what the next level of Sign and Thrive is going to be, and I kind of like this. So yeah, I'll take.
You can bundle your books together, like give away the Kindle, and as they opt in, you can give them here's a 7-day option. You get half price on my books, and you can run the numbers to where you're still going to be profitable, whether that's to lead them into a membership or whatever it might be. But man, it's an additional, very powerful, highly leveraged, big margin asset that because of the large margin, you have a lot to play with and it gets people's attention, especially when it's actually good. So they look and they're like, dang, this $300 book has 500 5-star reviews. What the heck is going on? Because no one sees that. They're like, how could a book be that good?
Right.
And then they have an irresistible offer to buy it. They're like, yeah, join my school community for $97 a month. I will give you a copy of my $500 book, and it's a money back guarantee. If you're not happy with it, I'll give you your money back, and you can keep the book, right? And that a return is going to cost you $11. So as long as your overall refund rate is less than 9%, or as long as your refund rate isn't 90%, you'll be fine, right? Hopefully it has a 90% refund rate.
You're in the wrong business if it does.
So very fun, creative. Again, that's the new ride that they're building at the back of the marketing park. Come on in for the expensive book, option. There are so many cool things you can do. Although, as I say this, the maximum price you can now charge through KDP is $250. You can print your own and sell them yourself for more money. Sure. It used to be $3,000 back before they merged Create Space with KDP. You could list a book for $3,000, and I'm so mad at myself for not doing it back in the day, because I was gonna do an event. If you bought this, 20 people would come to an event or something. Because that's the thing, and that's where I want people to think is you can sell a book and you can include whatever the heck you want. A phone, you include your phone number, right? Include your Calendly link for coaching, and you can charge more money. But it's a matter of getting creative, which part of me worries I'm going to put too many ideas in your head and you're going to get distracted. When you gotta focus. You've already got stuff to focus on, and I'm gonna get you distracted with selling $500 books.
Well, yeah. Well, I love the strategy there, because there's just for everyone listening too. There's two different ways of looking at it, right? I could sell $500 book and include my course with it, or I could just sell my book for $500 and then give it away somewhere else for that perceived value, add on into another product. So I think this is a great strategy, and you got my wheels turning on. I'll probably spin that, find a way to make it my own, but I love that. So thank you.
Take it and run.
That's the thing, though, right? We have the ticket. We have the golden ticket. We're in the amusement park. We're here. We have a published book or 5, and now we can have some fun. We can get on the rides.
Are you good on time, or do you have a hard stop?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
You're good? All right. So have you ever bought your own Kindle book to give away as redemption links?
I've given them copies away, but I've never used the redemption link.
Okay. Well, I've seen you've definitely run the promos. So you've done the free days. But you can go in and you could do a Kindle countdown deal, drop it to 99 cents if you wanted to, or just go in and drop to 99 cents. Then go back to your page. And you can buy as many copies as you want. Mm-hmm. So this only works on desktop, but it's underneath the buy box where it says buy for others. And you can go in and say, so you can buy like 500 copies, and they're going to give you 500 individual redemption links. And you buy them for 99 cents because you're the author. Then let the price go back up to $9.99. And to me, that's the new kind of opt-in. Like, hey, join my email list. You're going to get this much content, and I'll send you this other thing. And I will send you my Kindle book absolutely free. And that's anchored to a $10 price on Amazon. So they're like, really? Like, can you afford to do that, Bill? Like, you're going to give $10 to everybody who joins your email list? You're like, well, sort of. But that's the perceived value because you're the author and you're able to control price. So you might as well buy, at 99 cents. And you can do that for other people's books as well. So if Nick drops the price of Rise of the Reader to 99 cents, you can buy 500 copies of that.
Right.
And now you've got more lead magnets.
Yeah. That's great.
Definitely play around with that.
Yeah. Because right now I've been doing that just with the PDF, and the PDF is great. It generates some business, but I know hardly anybody reads it because who wants to read the PDF on the computer, right?
Yeah, people don't get excited. And again, they don't get as excited about Kindle as they would about like a paperback, but by the time you actually fulfill a paperback, it's costing you money. So you got to make sure that it plays out. Are you using author copies to fulfill single orders, or are you shipping single orders yourself?
No, I stopped doing that. In the very beginning, I was $40 or $50. But the fulfillment of that was just insane. And then I was falling weeks behind and then sending apology emails. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. And I didn't want to go through a fulfillment house and do all that. So I just took it off. So now I don't do any fulfillment. It's you have to buy through my partner at the National Notary Association or through bookstores now. BarnesandNoble.com. And
well, it's just a simple reminder, because a lot of authors I've found haven't thought of this. Like, they're buying their author copies, 50, 100 copies, whatever. You can go in and just put in one copy and ship it anywhere in the country, and they'll charge you $3.59 total. Exactly. And that works in like 8 different countries now. So you can pick like Amazon Australia, and it'll take you to your cart. Amazon. You can use the same Amazon login you have for .com. Put in an Australian address, and they will print it in Australia and fulfill it in Australia for a very similar price. UK, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Canada. I think they're working on Japan. Because it costs a ton of money just to ship to Canada, let alone Australia. So no, I'll just have Amazon print it in those countries, and Amazon's going to continue to expand this. So it's one of those amazing ways, again, to get your content into people's hands for a very low price, even potentially free. Because that's like another secret that I try to, especially for new authors, is like write your book in such a way that you benefit, even if you just give it away. That way you can just focus on getting your book into people's hands, and the people who want more, you go 80-20, 80-20, or whatever you want to call it, into your paid content, into your communities, into your social media. So they kind of get to know, like, and trust you. And then, if you have like a higher ticket offer they want to buy, they're like, oh, I'll totally buy this because I know this guy's legit. Like, I've seen all his stuff. Yeah, it's a fun kind of funnel game. It's not like we're playing a game, but it's definitely fun because you have all of these different options.
Yeah, and I love options, and there's no rules, and I think you have to give yourself permission for that too. You can do it. Think outside the box. There's things out there I see some authors doing. I'm like, God, I wish I would have thought of that. But I think we come into this archaic industry thinking that there's this set of rules because that's just the way things have been for hundreds of years. But that's not the case, especially now with self-publishing. And then you spend all this time writing it, all this time producing it, editing it, formatting it, getting it released. But then the rest of your life, you spend marketing this book. And you can get as creative as you want when you're out there and have fun with it.
Yeah, I describe it as like a 1 to 99 kind of ratio. It's only 1% having a book. And of course, always preface it with a good book. 1% having a good book. 99% is getting people to know about it, care about it, be willing to spend their money on it, and also have the rest of the system backed up, where when people get your book and they're interested and they want more information because you've actually really helped them, you've benefited them, you've changed their life, you've solved the problem. It's a lesson that took me a long time to learn, is when you solve problems for people, they want to pay you back somehow, right? They don't always know how, and everybody's going to be different. I used to go to events, and people who have read my book would come up like at the bar afterwards, like, "Hey man, I want to buy you a beer. You like really changed my life." I was like, "Hey, it's cool, man. Like I can afford my own beer." Like I was actually kind of like turning them down. And in hindsight, I realized like what a mistake I was making, because that was actually their way of thanking me, and I was actually kind of turning their thank you away, and I feel terrible about it every time I kind of think about it. But I just didn't realize that's what people are doing. But then once you realize, you're like, oh, okay, I understand why people are doing this. So even if you're just putting out free information on social media, give people a way to say thank you. Like just have a book that they can buy on Amazon, even if they never read it. But that's their way of saying thank you. And they might recommend it to somebody else, or they might, buy a copy for everybody that they know. You never know what they're going to do, but give them that option, right? Whether it's having a book on Amazon or having a course or having a $5,000 consultation package. You're never going to sell a $5,000 consultation package if you don't have one offered on your site. And if you sell enough books, someone's going to come along and be like, I just wanted to buy the most expensive thing you had, Bill. So that's the only reason I'm here. And depending on like where people are, they may think that's crazy. But I guarantee there are people out there that when they go into a store, they're not trying to think too hard. They're just saying, just sell me the most expensive thing because that's what I want to buy. Sometimes that sounds crazy, but let people do that. It's not your business. If they want to buy the most expensive thing at the Apple store, Apple's not going to question it. They're going to make that $20,000 computer, or whatever the most expensive thing is you can buy at the Apple store. Or they'll sell you a little $10 accessory, right? They have every single price point when you want to come in. Yeah, that's part of the book that I need to write. It's like explaining the difference between like a low price kind of authority building book, as well as the expensive, hey, you can actually make money selling this book. Because in general, I would not tell people you're going to make money. You're not going to make the royalties. We talked about earlier, but you can. The only reason I made 70 grand on a royalty check is because my book was $300, and the numbers actually start to work when you make enough royalty per book. But it's it can seem overwhelming. It can seem daunting. If people have questions about these things, I really hope people reach out and and get some help, because the good help is out there. Free Facebook groups. I mean, I hate to turn people away from them because some of them are just so bad. I don't know. It keeps the good communities in business to have those bad communities out there.
It does. And, luckily there's always the very generous coaches and consultants and authors that chime in and actually do provide some good value. But I think, it's a lot easier to help somebody who helps themselves, right? You be resourceful. If you can't afford a brand new book, buy a used one somewhere. If you can't afford an online course, see if a friend's taking it. See if you can get some, like a shorter version of it with a Cliff Notes version of what that is. Do some research. Get a foundation of your own. So you understand the process better. Second, that you ask better questions. It's really frustrating when all this information is free out there. First of all, you can Google anything. You can go to kindlepreneur.com. You can go to all these number of websites. Everything's out there. YouTube is filled with it if you know what kind of questions to ask. So you can ask better questions, get the response. Then you can ask for some perspective from people who are in these groups and who have done it. Hey, I read that this strategy, and this strategy work. Has anybody tried any of these? Or what do you think of this strategy? Who's a good copywriter for my landing page? Those types of questions, instead of just the super basic ones.
There's a lesson in there that I hadn't thought of in a while, and I'm going to use it so much. And it's the last time we went to Italy. I don't speak Italian. My wife's family's from Italy. but most people in Italy they're pretty good at English, right? They can communicate. And I found that if you at least try to speak Italian, they will acknowledge that and they will then speak English to you. And if you just like go up to somebody and like expect them to speak English to you in another country, you're a lot less likely that they're going to kind of respond and just like help you out of the goodness of their heart. And just that small thing of trying, of putting in a little bit of effort, having your little dictionary with you. Like it's been a while since there's better apps now than carrying a little dictionary. But showing them that you tried first is kind of all that someone needs to say, like, this is the person I want to help, instead of like just line up everybody who wants help and I'll just give you my day and help everybody. It's like, no, I'm going to help this person because they tried to help themselves. And if you do that in a free Facebook group or any community, you say, hey guys, this is what I saw, this is what I read, this is what I tried, this is what happened. Does anybody have any advice? I got to believe you're going to get so much better answers and responses from people who are willing to help, because they're going to see, hey, this person tried. Maybe they did the wrong thing, but that doesn't matter. It's the fact that they put in more effort instead of joining a group and saying, how's the best way to market a book? And they're like, what kind of book? To who? What price point?
That's a good
I'm not,
question.
I see questions like that, and I'm like, I want to answer because I'm like, market a book, let's go. But then I'm like, I don't have time to write 10 pages, to someone who's likely not going to read 10 pages. So it's put in that little bit of effort. Like go to the library, right? People kind of forget that we have libraries still. It's like the last place you can go and you're not expected to spend money, right? The last indoor place that you can go. Of course, you can go to the park and stuff, but I struggle to think of another indoor place you can go that you're not expected to spend money while you're there. I think libraries need to make a comeback. I'm trying to get, I don't know if Nick would brand himself as a librarian, but he kind of could. Because if someone comes up and says, hey, I want to learn about this, and you look to a library and you're like, is anybody working here? Like, oh, geez, like, I don't know where to start. You're overwhelmed. Instead of being overwhelmed with Google, you're overwhelmed with physical books in front of you. But if you had a librarian, if you had someone like Nick Hutchison, say, look, I want to learn about this. And Nick's like, oh, I got it. Comes back in 2 seconds, like, this is what you need. How valuable is that curation? How valuable is Nick in that situation? And because that librarian is there for free, and because Nick is making book recommendations for free, we don't value it. But if we actually went into the library with a mindset of like, I know there's a book in here that if I read it and follow it, I will make 6 figures a year. I just got to figure out which one it is. Man, there's too many. Wait a minute. There's like this guy here who will just give it to me. How much are we willing to pay for that book? How much are we willing to pay for Nick's advice or the librarian's advice? If we know the book they're going to give us is going to put us on a track, but we don't do it. It's like, oh, well, maybe they're wrong, or maybe this other book is better. And it's like, we spend our whole lives reading every single book looking for the best one, instead of like, dude, like 6 figures is pretty good. You can live like a king in most of the country for 6 figures.
Absolutely, and that can be the stepping stone for even more. And that's the challenge that we have, right? We don't have an information problem. It's everywhere. We have an execution problem. So at some point, you're going to have to learn. You choose your learning path, execute on it, put it into action, make your 6 figures, and turn it into 7 figures if that's what you're trying to do. And you spoke to that a little earlier. Make $10 first, make $100 first, make 1,000, then 10,000, then 100,000. And before you know it, and here was a shocker for me too, Chris, and maybe you can relate, but 6 figures is not as much as you thought it was on the other side of it. When you start making it, you're like, well, where's all my money? It's different tax brackets, different things, different expenses. So you end up having to make $200,000 or $300,000. And then when you make $200,000 or $300,000 or $500,000, things get really exciting. You can start leveraging cash and loans in different ways, and it just completely opens up your life. And I learned all this from being a mobile notary. Never thought in a million years that this would be the business that I did that. But if you start executing small, it's foundational stuff. You execute the same stuff in a different way. As you start making more money, start blowing up your network in different ways, you start meeting different types of people who are doing different and bigger things, playing a different game altogether. And it gets things exciting.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions as we kind of wrap up. One of them would be, what advice would you give somebody if they were looking to write and publish a book specifically for their business?
Okay, so I think I've got a few pieces of advice for that. First, of course, is just be prepared for the entire journey. We talked about that a little bit. Part of it is writing it. Nothing else matters until you write it. But then you do the production, and then you've got to, as Truman Capote says, a boy has to peddle his book, and you have to get out there and market and promote and market your book. The second thing I would recommend is being prepared to overcome your inner critic or your inner demons. The way I did that is every morning in my shower, I had to have the Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech carved in wood above my shower. And I had to remind myself every single day that the critics, the ones that are external and the ones internal, did not matter. I was compelled to write this book and I had to get through it. Third, well, again, we kind of talked about this a little bit. I'd say don't hold back. Don't tease people. Don't tease your reader. Give them the goods. And of course, nothing else matters until you actually write the book.
I think anybody listening to this is you're gonna remember all of these highlights of like all these things that they're talking about are because they've written books. To help people kind of just stay motivated, get that book written, because then you can join us on the inside of the marketing theme park where we're doing all these fun things and building new rides and all this other stuff. It is absolutely this, you may call it a linchpin. Is that a good phrase for it? Very vital piece to fast track a lot of different things. And it's more accessible than it's ever been. And especially when someone finally publishes, they hit that publish button. You're like, wow, that was actually really easy, right? Like it's 2 files. Give it a title, a description, a price, upload 2 files, and you are published on Amazon. And you start to reap the rewards of published author status. I was going to ask you if you had plans for another book. I don't know if your 33 Failures is the only book on your list, but I would guess you have more. If you had like a secret list of book ideas.
I do, totally, and I've got 2 that are in writing right now. That's one piece of advice I would recommend is just write 1 book at a time. But I'm writing 2 again.
I did 5 out of it. It was a bad idea.
It's
no,
terrible.
It's 4. I wrote 4 books at one time, and it was a disaster.
Yeah,
they were all related, but like managing 4 different covers and they were all kind of on brand. So anytime I changed one, I was like, oh, I need to change it on all else.
Yeah,
don't recommend it.
Do not recommend that at all. But yeah, I've got 2, and then my real passion, what I really want to move into, like I always think about what life after Notary Coach is going to be for me. And I love short essays, short stories. So I'm like in the not like true experiences, which my 5th book called Dandelions is that, but I want to do more of that. So I've got a few of those coming out about some of my quirky family members and stuff like that.
Have you seen the Kindle Vella program?
The Kindle what?
It's called Kindle Vella, Vella.
I've seen it, yeah, but I have no idea what it is.
It might not be the perfect match for what you're doing, but it is like kind of short stories, like I guess they call them novellas. So people kind of subscribe, and like they have to pay with like Amazon coins to get the next episode. So I think it's a lot kind of like soap opera type writing, but it's definitely more on the fiction, like short form fiction. And you can take your stuff down and publish it as regular content if you want. It doesn't suit my content at all, but that might be something else to consider, because Amazon does have a lot of publishing options, not just Kindle and paperback. They have hardback, and Chris, to me, like the Amazon serves most of the market, right? Most of what people need to do, they can get by just being published on Amazon, and they can expand to Barnes and Noble and use other publishers as they need to. But
have you seen the new the AI Audible through?
No.
So I'm in their beta right now, and they've approved 2 of my books for audiobooks, and I've been putting that off because I tried it in a studio. It was just a nightmare for me. It's just I wasn't able to do it, so I kept putting it off, and now Amazon comes through and they're like, all right, we've audiobook in 3 clicks, not my exact voice, but I bet by this time next year it'll be in my voice. But they're not bad, and there's no charge for it. It's just revenue share, just like they do everything else. So now I have 2 books on Audible after 5 years. after
That's,
publishing.
I'm interested in that because I have not done an audiobook for any of my books. And I've heard so many good things about like the additional benefits you get by having an audiobook. I know there's a lot of people out there who are now, and we're probably on an early phase of this, where to me, if it's only a Kindle book, I'm like, is this guy serious? To me, you have to have Kindle and paperback, and I'm like, okay, you're at least a little bit serious. But it's a different level. Kindle, paperback, and audiobook. All right, they've committed to this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a different level of commitment for you to actually record an audiobook. Whether you've outsourced it or done it yourself doesn't matter. In the eyes of the reader, like, okay, these guys are really serious. I can see that differentiation. I don't know if it's huge. It could potentially get bigger as people are trying to differentiate more. Having the audiobook, I thought you were going to say that Amazon gave you like 5 minutes of text to read, and it's like, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog or something, and with that clip of your voice, they read the whole book in your voice, like, because they're only going to need so much of your voice in order to use your voice. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because there's what's it called? There's a I just learned about that. Okay, so 11 Labs does that for
Yeah,
YouTube videos, things like that. You just read a sentence and then they've got your voice, they create videos for you. So we're that close. So I can see Amazon either having their own technology or buying 11 Labs or something and just
yeah.
having that technology. You read a paragraph and suddenly the book's in your voice. Like, I think we're a year away from that max.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was less. And I think it's just another good example of what's happening is things that used to be difficult are becoming very easy, and not everybody knows that. So, like one thing that I'm trying to help people kind of understand and leverage is like, hey, I can make you a best-selling author fairly easily, simply because if you just give away this many copies on Amazon in your category, you will be the number one in your category. It's really not that many. So it's not manipulating anything, but it is capitalizing and taking advantage of a system that people don't understand. They're like, wait a minute, I only have to like sell like 50 copies of a dollar book in this category and I'll be number one. I'm like, yeah, and take a screenshot and you can go around telling everybody I'm a best-selling author on Amazon. You're not making anything up, right? This isn't like black hat or even gray. This is exactly how it is. And because people don't understand it from the other end, they're like, oh, I'm listening. I'm listening, Bill, because I heard that you are a best-selling author on Amazon. I saw the screenshot. I now, you have my attention. Now you still have to deliver with actual good content and have, a book that actually is quality, but you're able to fast track these things. So it is going to be a level like people can fast track, having an audiobook and then, enjoying all the benefits of being an author with an audiobook. And there'll be people who use it nefariously and they will fail, as always happens. Um, but yeah, the people with good content will definitely survive. Yeah, some fun stuff. Yeah, I would definitely do the 33 failures. I think that would be an awesome book. Like that would be a book that leads people into other stuff as well, and you'll capture such a different market than you're capturing now. Um, it makes me want to think of like writing a similar book. Like one of the dumbest things that I've done. Like my biggest lessons were that I was early on a bunch of things and enjoyed success for being early, but I thought I was just super smart. In hindsight, I was just in the right place at the right time. Uh, and I'm trying to like really find a good way to encapsulate that to help other people like so they don't catch themselves and miss, because I feel I missed opportunities by not uh, you know approaching things in a different way, because I thought, oh, things just keep working the way that they were working, not really understanding the dynamics. And some of those things, it's like lessons you have to learn yourself. You can't always learn it from other people, but if we can publish books and help people and share lessons that way, hey, if it only helps one person, great.
Then that's enough. Yeah. And I think that's like the other side of things too, right? Like when authors or business people, they blaze a path, they hack the brush, they pave the road a little bit, make it easier for those behind us. But that can also backfire on our readers a little bit too, right? Because there's the strength you build by hacking that brush away, that paving, you learn all these lessons that somehow build up your character internally, and they're hard to convey. So when somebody asks me, they go, hey, this business is harder than I thought, I say, good. Take my lessons and go somewhere else and blaze your own path. I gave you a framework. I built a car for you. Drive it somewhere else. Bulldoze your own way. Find your own way, because that's where the real strength and the power comes in. When people start branching out and they want to be influencers or instructors or trainers or start their online courses, you'll not get as far regurgitating other people's stuff as you will creating your own framework. Build up like your lessons. Oh, here's Bill's Sign and Thrive 5-point system. But here's my 10-point system because I learned this, and this along the way, and I like it better. That's where the strength comes from.
Yeah, and people can get in their own heads and then get stuck, and they'll be like, "Oh, Bill already did it," and like, "Oh, what will Bill think if I add to the list?" Like, Bill doesn't care. He's not paying any attention. Bill's focused on what he's doing. Yeah, they got to get out of our heads sometimes.
Well, when I look back
It's
at my
tough.
lesson, it's all my head. Like every business, I'm like, all right, yeah, sure, I learned this, but my head was up my ass here, and my head was up my rear end here, and oh, there it is again. I'm a shiny object where I put like an ostrich, I stick my head in the sand. All of these lessons. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to figure out the lesson in a way that's teachable for others to help make a difference. So we should compare notes.
Well, I hope if we can, we could like co-author a book if we wanted to. I think if there's a lesson. I think it's from Matt Higgins' book. He was a friend of Nick's. He was on Shark Tank. In his book, he talks about proprietary insights, and it's when like you're knowledgeable about something, and then you learn about something else, and you're able to put them together in a way that people really hadn't done before. And I feel I've done that in a way with taking online courses and using self-publishing, saying like, wait, let's bring those things together. And just books in general, and like published author status, and everything you can do with marketing for like all kinds of different ways, and bringing them together. So I hope people listening to this, if they learn about self-publishing and just how easy it is, and kind of get the confidence, like, you know what, I think I do have something I can share, and I want to go down this path. That's what you're doing. You're taking your knowledge, you're combining it with self-publishing. You have to learn a little bit about marketing, but that's your proprietary insight. And I hope more people kind of lean into that and say like, yeah, like you can be the one who stumbles onto something new. It's almost like a feeling, like when you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right place at the right time, and everyone else disagrees with you. Like that was me with self-publishing. That was me like as an early FBA seller, and it sounds too good to be true. And I say this is how I describe KDP. For $0, Amazon will offer a physical product, internationally, Prime eligible, with free shipping. And when it sells, they'll do all the work and they will give you money. That's a pretty good deal, right? You don't have to buy inventory. You don't have to ship products. You have a physical product on Amazon. When it sells, they do all the work and they give you money. All you have to do is tell people about it.
Yeah.
That's such a good deal that I hope people take advantage of it and be like, I don't even know what I want to write, but I'm going to write something and take advantage of this. It's not even a unique moment in history. We've been able to self-publish, I think, since 2001, 2002, a long time. And the opportunity is as big now as it's ever been with Amazon's growth and with the promotional options that are built in to KDP right now. It is a very, very blue ocean. I don't see this anytime soon being taken over by all the bad marketers. I don't see it. This is an absolute kind of surefire path for a business if you can sit down and put your thoughts on paper and start with the top 10 book. If people are overwhelmed, top 10 things you should know before doing X. Top 5 if 10 is too many. Ask ChatGPT to help you write this, to help you outline the chapters for this book. Then fill them in. And if you need help, reach out. There are plenty of places to get help.
Absolutely. And you highlight a couple of things there. First, your first book does not mean it's going to suggest, and you learn from that. You can take that with you to the next book. And that's the other lesson here, is to bring all of your experience to your writing in your lessons and your teaching, because you have experiences, jobs, being fired, being hired, wins, losses, failures, all of that has helped you become who you are today. And that's going to make you a better writer when you incorporate those stories into how it helped you become and how you can convey your lessons or your story.
Well, I hope that people take away from this with an easy. This is such an easy one, guys. Just go to Bill's website. You can Google his name. I love your domain, Notary. That's like just such a. It's easy. It's pronounceable. It makes sense. But when you start seeing these sites, and use Bill's site as a perfect example, look at how he's using his book. Look at how he's using lead magnets to collect email addresses. Look at it from a marketer and a business aspect, and do this not just with his site, but any site that you see. Be like, oh, look at it from a marketer's point of view. and then say, wait a minute, I can do that. Because you might look at Bill's site and be like, man, this guy's got it together. He's got all these things, all these little pieces. It's like, yeah, but they're all just little pieces that anybody can put together. There's nothing proprietary. But if you see something that attracts you, you're like, oh, I want that book. I'll put my email in. Stop and think, what kind of triggered that? And say, I could do that in my business. I can see how if I have traffic coming to a website that has this information, I also offer them a book on top of it. I'm going to get a higher conversion rate, and I can build my email list. It's going to lead to clients, whatever it might be, whatever you're trying to do. Start looking at websites through the eyes of a marketer, especially a book marketer, because marketers with books as business assets, it is an absolute unfair advantage. I wouldn't want to try to be a notary coach without a book, right? Because
Totally agree.
how are they going to compete with you? It would be very difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
Absolutely.
Well, for people who want more information about you, do you have a number one best site to go to, or is it just go to Amazon and look for your name? What's people who want more Bill in their life, where do they go?
Go to notarycoach.com and you can find just about anything you might be looking for Bill Soroka, or you can go to billsoroka.com.
I like that you have multiple domains. I am totally a domain guy. And you have your author page set up, so you can just search for your name on Amazon. You'll find your author page. You can find your books with over 1,000 reviews, which is awesome. Hitting the top 200 sellers. All things you can leverage if you want. So, Bill, thanks so much for joining, and thanks to Nick for connecting us. I hope we'll do this again. I could talk books and marketing with you for a while, and maybe we'll actually open up the marketing theme park one day.
I love that. Chris, thank you so much. I've had a great time, and I am appreciative of Nick for bringing us together as well.
Sounds good. All right. We'll talk soon, Bill.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Authorpreneur Podcast. If you'd like more information about this episode's guest, you can find links to their books, websites, and social media profiles in the show notes and video description. If you're an author or business owner who's interested in learning more about how you can use books and published author status to market and grow your business or personal brand, or if you're an aspiring author looking for more information about the publishing process, you can find more information and request an author audit at authorpreneur.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to recommend someone, please reach out via email to chris@authorpreneur.com. Remember, a book is just a book, but when it's your book, it's an asset. #Authorpreneur.